Great day, Boss Tribe. Welcome to Boss Moves, where we don't just talk leadership, we are shifting cultures, elevating performance, and doing it all fiercely authentic. I'm Dr. LaQuanta Nelson, and in this episode today, we are talking about how may I serve you? And none other than Kenya Brown is on set to share with us her thoughts on servant leadership. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having
We
me.
are so excited to have you here with us today. There are so many people that are leading, but there are so few people that are leading with a servant's heart. And so as we were getting ready for this episode, I was like, who better to pull in but the one and only, right? Kenya Brown. But before we get into your titles, your positions, I want to know, who is Kenya?
Ooh, that's such a loaded question.
Well, take your time. We are here
Who is
for it.
Kenya? First, I would say that I am most and foremost a child of God.
Yeah.
I am a wife, coming up almost 20 years
Oh,
married in
wow.
2 weeks. I'm a mother of two amazing young men. It's hard to transition from saying boys to men now
Yeah.
because both of them are in college, and
Wow.
and I'm a faithful servant in the corporate space and in the spiritual space. So every corner that I turn in my life, I am servicing somebody. So my heart is in the center of service.
I absolutely love that. So I want to start with the corporate space first. I'm a stats girl, and as it sits today and as it stands today, only about 5% of the people that are sitting in corporate leadership positions right now are Black females. And if I add an age bracket onto it, it goes down tremendously, right? You have navigated promotion, acceleration, right?
Right.
Into what we consider now corporate space leading. What has that been like for you? What has that journey been like for you?
Oh,
Start us way back.
I'm gonna start you back. I'm gonna go back 16 years. In the current company that I'm with, I came in the door entry level, and when I came in the door, I still hadn't navigated who I wanted to be in my career. I was just doing what was necessary at
Yeah.
the time, being a young married woman with a family, just bringing my part to the table,
Yeah.
to help my husband with what we were trying to build.
Yeah.
Had no idea. Very entry level. About 3 years after that, I started to explore what I wanted to do. So I moved into the department that would literally change my life.
Yeah.
Within that time, I was promoted about 7 times within that department. It was literally year after year. It was blowing my mind so much that I was just like, God, I'm just along for the ride. And I went from very entry level to senior leadership in a Fortune 5 company, a big healthcare tech company, and it has been an amazing journey. And I tell you what, one of the things that changed for me in 2016, I read The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes.
Yes, come
And
on,
I started to
Shonda.
just say yes to opportunities
Oh,
that I would
wow.
otherwise scare myself out of.
Yeah.
Doing it scared, I've heard that today. Doing it scared has been one
Yes.
of the things that I've
Yes.
done so many times. And it's like a way of life now for me. I don't think I do it scared anymore, but I often think about that Kenya that was sitting in the airport before a big meeting, and I would think about how did I get here and why am I here? So the year of yes changed my life, and I also wear a bracelet that says yes to you.
Oh, I
It's a
love it. I
reminder.
love. Oh, this is a question for
Yes.
the viewers. Are you saying yes to you? Are you giving yourself permission to be, to evolve, to grow? I love that. Yes to you.
It's a reminder to myself when I forget why I do what I do, because there are hard days. Like you
Yes.
said, there are not a lot of people that look like me.
No.
So I don't often have a lot of people to lean on. So I have to lean into what I've learned along the way.
I love that. So let's dive on into that. Authenticity versus adaptability. Let me say it again. Authenticity versus adaptability. I know growing up, education was stressed. Like you got to get it right. Going to an HBCU radically changed me even more so. So this concept of knowing who you are, but then understanding that there might be a possibility that you need to code switch. I think so often, looking back now, so many of us are just afraid to like, no, I'm gonna go against the grain with it, right? I'm still professional, but I don't have to fit into this particular mold. So when I'm thinking about code switching and showing up in spaces where, you're trying to figure out, how do I show up me? What has it been like for you? Authenticity versus adaptability. And I do think, let me preface, because I do think that we do need to balance.
Right.
But what has that journey been like for you as it relates to being into spaces where, it's you one-on-one, a one or two?
It has been quite eye-opening,
Yeah.
actually. When I first started in leadership and in associate leadership, I felt like when I travel, I need to wear my hair a certain way. I need to
Yes.
speak a certain way. As a girl from the South, I would feel like, I got to practice on the way I say this. I don't want to come off a certain way. As I grew and as I started to get in these rooms with these folks with all of the titles, I realized that they were just like me.
Mm-hmm.
Some, we weren't even on the same level. I had surpassed them years. So I started to say I could be who I really am.
Yeah.
And I changed my hair. I did what I wanted to do. Because I would travel and I would see not a lot of women would have, I've always wanted locks.
Yeah, and they're gorgeous, by the way. I
Thank
see your
you.
new color. I
Thank
see
you,
it.
thank you. I've always wanted locks. And I had this talk with myself before I transitioned to locks. And I said, whatever I do, I'm going to do it because Kenya wants to do it.
Yeah.
And if anybody has a problem with that, that's their problem. So I adapt to what Kenya wants because at the end of the day, I am running this race. And so I believe that the talents that I have can be accepted in any format. You're going to get this Kenya. You're going to get the side shave Kenya with the locks going to the side, the blonde hair, the funky colors, the personality.
Yeah.
I have learned to be authentic to me instead of being authentic to people who most of the time don't even know who they are.
Absolutely.
So when I realized that, I really started to walk full-fledged into who I really was.
I love that. So talking about walking to who you are as you are, and I tell people all the time, speaking and traveling, even before I got into speaking and traveling, I'll never forget, you remember Miss Angela Jones?
Yes.
High school, right? She was such an advocate for all of us, not just me. And I remember traveling to Indiana University, 11th grade year, and going and sitting in this room with high school people from all over the United States. When we introduced ourselves and I said my name, everybody in the room did this. How does she talk like that? I will never forget that moment of what that felt like. And it was that moment that I was like, yeah, I probably should learn how to adjust what I sound like, where I'm at. And so for years, I did that, right? So talking about that, I teach now and I preach. Dialect does not equate intellect because it doesn't. And so what I found after a while, I was convicted that I was perpetuating the foolishness. Me shifting so much was perpetuating this idea that girls from the South are not intelligent. That if you're from a certain part of the country or part, that possibly there's a ceiling to your creativity, to your innovation. And that's just absolutely not the case, right?
Not true at all.
But speaking along those same lanes of language and leadership, what have you found has been a connector for you? Because you lead a team now. You lead a national team. What has been a connector for you as you are authentic, right? But what has been a connector as it relates to language and encouraging and getting buy-in and creating energy around the work that you guys are doing? How have you navigated that servant's heart and that language?
That's a good question. I really get to know people.
Yeah.
I introduce myself. I have these calls. When I join a team, I ask, hey, I want to get to know you. Can I book some time on your calendar? Even if it's 15 minutes, let's talk. And I always start off by saying, what's your personal life? And then we move into professional. Because I want to know who you are on the other side. Because I think somebody else was speaking about, just knowing what are your passions outside of work. Because I want to make sure balance is key. And respect, and I get to talking with people, and they kind of let their guard down, because when folks hear your title, they'll say, "Oh, she wants to talk to me."
Or she's one of them.
Yeah, what if she's picking my brain? But when people really realize that outside of that title, I'm Kenya, and I really just want to know what drives you. Even if it's at home, you don't have to say that it's work. Work is maybe just something you do to pay the bills, but what drives you? And so that's a connector for me. Is just getting to know the person. And letting the person know me as well, not just behind a computer screen, but me as what I do when I turn the laptop off at night. This is what I'm a family person. I love being with my family. I love going to church. I love traveling. So I think that that's a connector, just being personable.
What has been one of your greatest hurdles and one of your greatest successes leading corporate young Black female, right? Black young female, what has been one of your, the biggest things that you've kind of had to navigate, and then what has also been one of your greatest successes?
One of the biggest challenges that I actually had to navigate was being judged as soon as I walked through the door. Knowing where I'm from, even, getting into the building to do this presentation for all of these people, being judged as soon as I walk in the door before I even open my mouth.
Yeah.
That was one of the biggest challenges, but it also made me who I am today, because that no
Talk
longer
me
is
through that now.
something-
What do you mean by that?
Taking it, going through it, it happened a lot.
Yeah.
On the West Coast,
Yeah.
I would say that it would happen, more frequently. And by the time these folks got done listening and seeing the benefits that I would bring to the table, it was a different conversation. But before I would open my mouth, the conversation was different. It was
Yeah.
kind of like, why are you here? Are you subbing for somebody? Those types of things. But by the time that light shone, by the end of that conversation, it was, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? Would you like to have lunch after this? And so I had to really think about, this is not something you can control, how other people see you. Just go there for the purpose that you're there for, and leave the impression that you went there to leave. And whatever they take from it, don't let that change the way you feel about how you've done.
Yeah.
Because you're here for a reason.
Right.
There's not a lot of people that do what I do. So
Right.
I'm walking in rooms now knowing that this is for
What
me.
was that turning point though? I love music. There's a song, a blues song. I reached the turning point. Dun,
Oh, yeah.
dun.
Oh, yeah.
What was the turning point that you went from I realized that this is how I'm being perceived versus no, this is how I'm going to stand and look from my perspective?
I think my mentor made me realize that, because I saw it, but I tried to pack it away.
Yeah.
Because I was early on in my leadership journey, I carried my emotions on my shoulder. So I saw it. In order for me to finish it, I would pack it away. My mentor pulled me to the side one day. We were actually getting ready to go to the airport, and she said, Kenya, you need to realize that these people already see you. You're a Black woman. Your name is Kenya. They say Kendra, or they say all these other names like they can't say your name. You literally have a 5-letter name. You need to process that, and you need to understand that you're here. Stand in it. She told me to stand in it. She
Yeah.
noticed that I wasn't standing in it.
Wow.
I was just, going on with the status quo. But once I really realized that standing in it was what I needed to do and feel the feels, I guess I shed all of that. I mean, I am who I am. And now I proudly say I am Kenya Brown. And, once I feel like I've done what I needed to do, I also say my name again. I want you to know. I want you to know that I am Kenya
I love
Brown.
that. I
Right.
so love that. Speaking of that, same thing, for years, and I catch myself even today because it was so indoctrinated in my mind, right? We create our own boxes.
Okay.
All right, for the
Yes.
record, we create our own boxes and we put ourselves in them and say, don't get out the box.
Right.
Sometimes other people will try to do it, but we do it for ourselves. But my name is LaQuanta, so people butcher that. Be like, La Quinta, like the cheap hotel.
It's
like
so
you ain't give me the
annoying.
better like
It's
that.
so annoying.
But I stopped saying my first name. People would ask, you're ordering things or I would just literally say my last name. Because it's like, I'm sick of people getting my name wrong, right? But in schools, no, we got to get the name right. And I was preaching that, but here I am. So that's been a journey for me, right? Because I am LaQuanta. My mother's name is Mary. My daddy's name is Joe. But that's so powerful to just stand in it.
Stand in it.
Stand in it.
Yeah.
Powerful. What do you say to people? Okay, so that was one of your big hurdles. What has been one of your greatest successes being, again, that same Kenya Brown, same Black girl, young female, leading corporate? What has that been?
Oh, my greatest success has been, actually, I have so many, but I'm going to talk about one that was really early on. That also probably attributed to my quick pivot in my career. I was asked to stand in for a teammate to travel to Iowa. And I hadn't traveled before. This was 2015. I hadn't traveled before alone. And I was like, ooh, should I do it? I asked, and I prayed about it. And I said, okay, I'm going to do it. Had 2 days to prepare for it. And I did it. And man, when I tell you, Dr. Nelson, we knocked that thing out the water. That was the do it scared. That was the biggest do it scared moment I have. And I think about that so much.
Yeah.
It's been 11 plus years, but I still think about that.
Yeah.
And just knowing now, in my current role, I didn't even want to go to the interview. I felt like I tried to talk myself out of it. I was like, this is way too fast. This is going to be too much. But I know it was God ordained because I made a promise to myself once my youngest son graduated, I would have all this free time and I could do a lot more in my career. And I kid you not, the offer came in the day my baby graduated. And I said, okay, God, I'm glad I listened to that because I almost talked myself out. That box that we talked about, I almost put myself in a box and I would have missed the best opportunity yet. I know there's more, but I would have missed the best opportunity yet.
So what do you say to somebody saying, okay, I hear you talking Shonda Rhimes, you're yes, but how do you take the first step with it? Like, what's the first step? And like, I've been telling myself no, I've been putting myself last. I have been doing all the things, but giving myself permission. How do you take the first step to give yourself permission?
I close your eyes and move.
Close your eyes and move. I love it.
Close your eyes and move.
Yes. I think we spend so much energy in convincing ourselves not to.
Right.
Like literally, we convince ourselves to not be great.
Right.
Convince ourselves to stay in the mundane. Convince ourselves to but it takes the same amount of energy.
It does. It literally does.
Okay, so I'm shifting, right? Because servant leadership. When you hear servant leadership, what comes to mind?
Just standing in the front and the back. A lot of times people have this idea of servant leadership. And I always tell folks all the time, once they get to know me, servant leadership is not a strategy for me. It's a posture.
Ooh.
That's a lifestyle.
Yes, yes.
I have navigated through so many spaces through using that mantra. Because it gets hard, right? Everybody doesn't understand. They think that you have a motive. But my motive is to help all of us get to the other side. And I think servant leadership is the best way to do that. But yeah, it's definitely not a strategy. It's a posture. And I use it in all facets of my life. I
absolutely love that. And you're right. You said something. I think people have been traumatized.
Yes.
In professional spaces, personal spaces, that when people are nice, it's like, what do you want? Mm-hmm. What are you trying to do? Is she out to get me? Right. Is she? So that is sad, but it's true that people feel that. I too have experienced that concept of, but I have found that over time, the consistency takes care of that, right? I think a lot of people are inconsistent with their leadership, and it causes great mistrust.
It does.
Like, I don't know what you're gonna do because you're inconsistent. You're all over the place, right? So talking about building effective leadership, we do it by being consistent with the way that we show up. Talking about showing up. You not only show up as a servant leader in corporate, but I am seeing you guys galvanize, rejuvenize a whole community through servant leadership. You are absolutely a community advocate, a community leader. What has that journey been like for you, and why are you so, because you don't even live technically in the zip code that y'all have activated. What has that been like for you? What's been that motivation for you to activate that community again?
I think about little Kenya.
Yeah.
I think about the Kenya who grew up in the big city of Crystal Springs that needed that, right? So I go back to how I felt, and I often know that although the generations are different, the problems are similar.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just a different, newer way, but the problems are similar. So in my advocacy and in my ministry with youth, I think about what I needed. And I try to, listen to them wholeheartedly. I watch for patterns and, just give them a space to be you, to just be authentic.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. What has been, even as it relates to empowering youth, because you have been a boss tribe, a goal friend of mine for a long time. We've been doing youth empowerment workshops and camps and things for a while, right? We're overdue for one. It's time for another one. But what have you found that has shocked you as you're working with the youth in 2026? Because here you are leading corporate space, but you are also very much so driving youth engagement in the community. So what shocked you recently about young people in our world?
They have some very grown-up problems.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Our youth today, because of the access that they have, they have some very grown-up problems, and it's very shocking. And another thing is relationship with parents. Mm-hmm. As a parent of young men, it breaks my heart to hear some of the things that kids cannot talk to
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes my boys are too comfortable. They'll overshare. I'm like, you could have called your daddy with this. But I love it because that has been the driving force in my motherhood is to build.
Safe space.
And I think about, I want my kids to come back and visit me at the Thanksgiving table when they get grown with families. I don't want them to be like, no, I don't deal with my mama.
Yeah.
So every opportunity that I have with my boys, whether it's something positive or negative, because, you know, parenting is
Life
not
happens,
easy.
yeah.
I think about that in the approach that I take. I don't want to lose that relationship. So I value that with my whole life. So yeah, kids have these grown-up problems that's very shocking. And it's like, do you have to have that problem? But I still let them be authentic,
Yeah.
and I give them a transparent answer. I have not always been, I'm not perfect now, but
Right.
the Kenya that you see before you has not always been that Kenya.
Yeah.
So I meet them where they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I so love that. Talking about meeting people where they are. So you have also started Millennial Deaconess, right? So again, young. When we think of people, you know, leading ministry, we don't always shift to your age bracket. What motivated you to start that?
You know, being in church all my life, I've seen the traditions, the long skirts, the big wide hats. And I started to watch people in my age group and younger feel like it wasn't a space for them because tradition was pushed so much.
Yeah.
And we always say, you know, the youth are the future of the church. How can they be if they see so much of the past?
Oh, wait a minute. Say that again. Wait. Oh, wait a minute. I had to sit back and turn around. Say that one more time. That's so powerful.
We always hear our pastors say, and we go up in the church when they say it, but if the youth are the future, how can they be if all they see is the past?
Oh, yeah.
So that is the driving force of my mission for the Millennial Deaconess, is just to be, you know, not so relatable where we lose the trust, but relatable in a way that you can have that balanced life. You know, the big hats and all that stuff is just not something that's in my lane. I don't look down on people who do that, but I want to be that middle, that median between the youth and the adults. Because there are some women, some mature women that actually need that advice too, because they never heard it.
Absolutely.
People hold that stuff.
Listen, we have all grown, or not all, a lot of us,
Yes.
especially women in the South, you know, we've been trying, you are to be seen and not heard.
That's right.
You know, you sit pretty, you don't necessarily, and so I think that we are in that generation that's kind of challenging. We do have thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. And I
We
can't
do have
hold them
different
in.
ways. It's like you can't hold it in.
I can't hold them in. But
Talking about not holding it in, how have you navigated having crucial conversations, not holding it in, right?
one thing I want to attribute that to my pastor understanding me. I remember when my husband and I sat across from him, I said, listen, you know me. I got these locks, they run. I got this shaved side. I don't dress stockings, or, you know, not in my... And having a pastor that understands that none of that makes me who I am. My journey in the kingdom has nothing to do with what I wear. It has everything to do with my heart for God. And so having supportive people in leadership has been the driving force. And also having a spouse that knows, hey, we're a partnership. You know, both my husband, he's a retired sergeant in the Army. Both of us have these leadership personalities.
Yes.
So we don't have any choice. And we
Yeah.
don't have to compete for it.
Yeah.
We have a meeting of the minds, and if he sees something that works better for me, I take that in, and vice versa. So being allowed to have that personality, and I feel like the way I am, even if I wasn't allowed, I would find a way. Because I feel like it just needs to be. It needs to be said. Things need to be said.
So shifting back to corporate, what does that look like for you in corporate spaces where you have to have, I say it's crucial conflict. You remember crucial conflict? But I think when we think of conflict, we make it negative. It doesn't have to be conflict. It's opportunity, people. That's all conflict is. It's an opportunity to build connection, to you know, to establish greater clarity, to gain support. Like it's opportunity. So how have you navigated crucial conflict or critical conversations in your corporate space?
It's actually fun because I always talk with a smile. I feel like I can say, this is another thing, I'm full of all these little sayings. I can deliver garbage news in either a paper plate or a china plate. And I'm good at delivering it on a china
You gonna
plate.
put it on the china
It could be
plate.
the worst thing,
Yeah.
but it's gonna sound good. And my coworkers always tell me, when I want to deliver bad news, I'm gonna let Kenya do it. Because you have to think about it. A few hours, you'll be like, But that's just a superpower.
Yeah.
So I know the personalities who I'm talking to. When I have these conflicts,
Knowing
I
your
try to
audience.
handle things and communicate in the way that the person can receive it best.
Yes.
Because if we're competing to communicate and we're doing this back and forth, it's not going to get solved.
Right.
And so I'm a person that let's resolve this. But I'm also a person that cares about the end goal at hand. So yeah.
I absolutely love that. Serving it on.
Yeah.
On the China. So what do you say to somebody who struggle with that? What is like a go-to strategy for you as your practice? Yeah.
You know, at first it was uncomfortable, but the more you do something, the more comfortable you become. Because if you're actually solving a problem and the people that you're having this conflict with know that the goal at hand is partnership at the end of the day, that's when it comes to building rapport with people. I think it'll work. You know, it may not feel good. You may walk away and say, I didn't want to say it like that. Practice makes perfect.
Yeah, I think we often difference at this once. Fred Smith, Dr. Smith, he was on one time. He said, you know, people run from conversations they should be running to.
Yes.
I told him I will never forget that. That is so true. Like if we would just go ahead and hit it head on, we're done. We move on with life. Clarity.
Conflicts make you stronger.
Conflict makes you stronger.
If everything is comfortable, you'll never be able to grow.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think about going to the gym. Yeah.
Oh Lord.
Yes. Progressive overload.
Yes.
It don't feel good, but it sets you up for a stronger body. It just absolutely does. So, you know, BOSS stands for being bold, optimistic, spontaneous, and substantial. Servant leadership is just all woven all through that, right? It truly is. But what do you want to say as we get ready to get out of here? What is an encouragement or a strategy or parting word to someone to go make some boss moves? What would you say to people out there that, you know, is going to encourage them to show up bolder, more optimistic, more substantial, more, you know, spontaneous?
I would say the thing that keeps you up at night, the thing that you are so afraid to do that it makes you clam up at the hands, close your eyes and do it. And that's a boss move.
That's a boss
That's
move.
a boss move. Yeah.
That's a boss. You have been an absolute delight. This has been absolutely fantastic. How do people follow you? Because I want, you know, Millennial Deaconess is such a radical concept. Like even the two words together. How do people follow you on your journey there?
Because I am a millennial and I have social media overload, the Millennial Deaconess is available on Facebook. You can find me there on Facebook.
Okay.
So yeah, and I have this thing called Millennial Deaconess Monday, where I talk about things that are on my heart in a way that a millennial would do, real and raw.
Real and raw.
And yeah, I'm loving it. It's a fun journey to be on right now.
Well, we are along for the ride.
Thank you.
So thank you so very much. You guys know it's always a great day to be you. And today we've talked about the heart of leadership. We've really talked about leading with love, which you guys know is a core concept for us here at Boss Educator. Remember, it's always a great day to be you. Never ever forget that. Be boss.